From Ann Arbor, Michigan, and the Genesis Communications Network, this is Veterans Radio. And here's your host, Ken Roby.
Hello, and welcome to Veterans Radio. This evening, I'm flying solo as everybody's got other things to do. Dale's suffering down there at the World Series, and Gary's down in Florida, and these guys, I'll tell you, they just go off and leave me alone. I don't know. Well, what can you do, right? But we got an interesting show tonight, I think. Tonight we're going to talk about the Armed Forces Radio and Television Service. And I'm sure that you've all heard of that. Those of you who were in the military overseas probably lived and breathed AFRTS. And it's undergone many changes over the years since 1942 when it was first established. And we have a gentleman who was the director of programming for AFRTS when he retired on the show this evening, Jerry Fry, and he's got some interesting information about AFRTS and its history and some of the luminaries that had worked in AFRTS, some of the guys that, like Pat Sajak was in AFRTS, got to start there, and he's done all right for himself, I think. I don't know. I think he has. Anyway, I do think we have a good show tonight, and before we get into that, we do have a news story that I want to pass on. The Armed Forces have continued to search for missing in action personnel, and we've got this report from the Soldiers Radio News Service.
This is Soldiers Radio News. I'm Joe Bordeaux. The Joint POW MIA Accounting Command works tirelessly to find America's missing service members, identify them, and bring our heroes home. Senior Airman Anthony Kuhn has the story.
Members of the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command are well known for sending recovery teams to austere locations to retrieve the remains of fallen American service members. After recovering the remains, they're transported to JPAC's Central Identification Laboratory on Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. Sometimes it takes years to successfully identify an individual, but Dr. John Bird, a forensic anthropologist, says he gets a lot of personal and professional satisfaction from knowing JPAC's mission has a lasting impact on families.
Probably the greatest source of satisfaction for us comes when we get to meet the family members of these missing servicemen, and we're able to see that we've helped them achieve some level of closure.
The Joint POW MIA Accounting Command continues to work tirelessly, one success at a time. Senior Airman Anthony Kuhn, Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii.
That's Soldiers Radio News. I'm Joe Bordeaux.
And periodically, whenever we have an interesting news item from them, we'll be presenting them to you at the beginning of the show. And we're going to get into our show in just a few minutes. But first, each week on Veterans Radio, we like to welcome home servicemen and women who have been stationed around the world in the service of our country. And tonight, we welcome home 150 Iowa National Guard soldiers. They're from Troop C, 1st Squadron, 113th Cavalry, and 250 members of the 29th Signal Battalion, and 160 members of the 14th Engineer Battalion from Fort Lewis, Washington. Soldiers of Echo Detachment 18th Personnel Services Battalion returned home to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And on October 13th, Fort Sill, Oklahoma welcomed home 110 National Guard soldiers from Arkansas and Pennsylvania. And over 100 soldiers from the 913th Army National Guard returned home to Union City, Tennessee. And soldiers of the North Carolina Army National Guard's C Company 505th Engineer Battalion returned home on October 7th to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And a welcome home to our neighbors up north. 30 British Columbia Afghan veterans were honored in a ceremony held in New Westminster, Vancouver Province, Canada, on October 15th. Welcome home.
The military is the last honorable profession. Those people have taken a vow that, if necessary, they will give up their life for our country. That's not give up part of their pay or give up some vacation days. They will give up their life for our country. Those words were delivered at a national convention of Vietnam Veterans of America by Vietnam veteran Captain Dale Dye, United States Marine Corps retired, and military consultant to Hollywood luminaries Tom Hanks, Oliver Stone, and many others. My name is Gary Lilly, and as a proud Vietnam veteran, I ask, can we do any less than support the brave men and women in today's military?
And we're back on Veterans Radio, and we're going to talk to our first guest this evening. The man that I'm going to have on is Jerry Fry, who was the Director of Programming when he retired from AFRTS. Jerry, I think it was 1996, was it?
That's right. I bowed out when they moved the AFRTS Broadcast Center from 35 miles from where I live to 115 miles from where I live.
I don't know why you would do that. That's a short commute.
The commute didn't seem all that attractive, even though I tried it for about 3 months before I decided to hang it up.
No, I wouldn't blame you for that. Jerry, how did you get into AFRTS?
Well, I was in the Army, a draftee in the Army in 1956, and ended up in Germany, fortunately, because it was great duty. But I was unfortunate enough not to be assigned to AFN, the American Forces Network there in Frankfurt, because I was locked into an infantry division and they wouldn't let me go, even though I had passed the audition. But I ended up working a lot with AFN. I established my own radio and TV section in the Public Affairs Office of the 10th Infantry Division in Würzburg and did a lot of programs for AFN. So that was my first exposure.
Mm-hmm.
After I got out of the Army, I went back into commercial radio and TV and worked a number of years there. And always thought, gee, it would be nice to get back to Frankfurt. So in 1964, I heard about a job coming open for the program directorship of the Armed Forces Network in the Panama Canal Zone. And I thought, gee, there's the in. I'll take that job, maybe, and then switch on over to Germany later on. 1964, early in January, they'd had terrible riots in Panama. So the prospect of moving there with my new bride of about 3 months didn't seem all that appealing, but we decided to do it, and it turned out to be a wonderful assignment. We stayed 12 years running the network in Panama.
And it was no way you were going to get to Frankfurt with Bob Harlan there.
No, I found that out later on. Bob was entrenched, shall we say.
Yeah, I should tell the audience that Jerry and I have known each other for a long time, back in the early days when I was still in the Air Force. So, Jerry, what was AFRTS like back then in the 60s?
In 64, when I got there, we had a very minimal television operation. Radio had been on the air since 1943 or 4 and was doing well. But television was still using Vidicon, studio Vidicon cameras with horribly hot lights, 2 cameras, and all black and white, of course, in those days. All of our programming came in from the Los Angeles headquarters on 16-millimeter film, either kinescope recordings or film prints, and we had to put them on from that source. Sports events and other things that were timely were always seen at least 2 weeks later after the event.
Mm-hmm.
Even though our radio station may have aired the same ball game live via shortwave when it was on the air live in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always kind of fun to see how people reacted to seeing something 2 weeks after it had played in the States.
Well, I remember my first assignment in Thailand was in 1969, and we used to get the ball games in on that green Mylar tape.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that stuff was terrible.
It was 16-millimeter film.
Yep, right. And you just couldn't edit it. You couldn't cut it. It was just horrible stuff.
And you couldn't see the image on it very well because it was so washed out looking.
Yeah. And it was a terrible picture, but the guys loved watching them. They loved watching them.
Something is better than nothing when you're overseas.
What about radio reception? Was that shortwave?
Yeah, from the States it was shortwave out of AFRTS in New York, and in our case AFRTS in Los Angeles, which was beamed up through Voice of America transmitters in Delano, California.
Mm-hmm.
But none of that reception was extremely good, as you probably remember. It was iffy at best. And sometimes ball games would fade in and out to the point where it was very difficult to listen to them. And other times it was almost 5 by 5.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, later on, when the technology became available, they first put the broadcast service on an Audubon line, a 3 kilohertz telephone circuit, which didn't sound very good, but at least it was dependable.
Mm-hmm.
And it came through without being fading in and out. And then eventually, something called a satellite came in.
Wow.
Satellite circuits became the norm.
And when was that?
I'm thinking that the first satellite for audio services were about 1969, 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And we of course didn't get television satellite, and in Panama we did the first satellite presentation for television in December of 1968. The West Point Society in Panama City, the president of that society came to me and said, "We are getting together some money, and as you know, Panama has a brand new Earth station. They can receive satellite signals live from anywhere in the world, but it costs a lot of money to do that. But we're gonna raise the money, and we want you to put on the Army-Navy game on the Southern Command Network live." And I just about fell out of my chair. Somebody's volunteering to pay for all this effort, and by golly, they did it. The problem was they only got enough money for one half of the game. I had to make the decision: do we air the first half or the second half? Pretty obvious which one we chose.
Well, I remember I was in Germany 63 to 67, and we got our first satellite feed while I was there, but it only went to a couple of select locations that had very low power transmitters, and so you had to travel some distance to see the game. You go to the rec center or something on base and watch it.
Yeah, see, that was the difference in Germany. The transmitters were localized just to the post or the bases there. In Panama, we actually radiated on channels 8 and 10, one on the Pacific side and one on the Atlantic side, which was wonderful for all of the audience, except that it also beamed signals into the Panamanian population, and therefore caused us to have a lot of conflict with the commercial channels who wanted to air the same programs in Spanish. So many of the programs that were top rated in the United States we couldn't put on the air because they were already either on the air in Panama or would be sometime in the future.
Well, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but we have a caller who wants to make a comment about American Forces Radio and Television Service. You're on here, sir.
Yes, my name is Joe, and I'm down in southern Italy. I've been over here now about almost 7 years working at a solar observatory. And I spent 2 tours at San Vito from May 77 to 81, and then I came back for a second tour in 83 to 86.
Well, John, you were there when I was there. I was there from 70 to 75.
Oh, okay.
I was a morning man, and I was also the station manager there.
Okay. Well, like I said, I got here in May of 77. And left in May of 81, and then I came back in January of 83 and left in May of 86. But okay. I remember a Gordon, I can't think of his last name, that worked at the FRTS there in 77 when I got here.
Right. So what is your comment, sir?
Well, my comment was I listened to the radio on base while I was at work, but for about a year and a half before they got the one channel sent off base in the local area here, that we finally got the Armed Forces Television Network, one station broadcast off base somewhere around 79. But anyway, I enjoyed it a whole lot, and it was a big break to see American TV finally after a year and a half of not watching TV, American TV, and it was a nice thing to have for the people off base anyway, because I lived off base the whole time I was over here.
Yeah. Well, we were very glad that we were able to bring that service to the people down there, knowing that community very well and how important it was. It made us feel very good to do that.
That's one of the few places I unfortunately never got to visit while I was in the AFRTS. I always wanted to get there because I heard so much good things about it.
Yeah, it was really. I've got a little over 14 years here now with my two active duty tours and my civilian tour here now, and I'm leaving in December and retiring and giving it all up. So I've enjoyed it down here in southern Italy, and I'm sure most everybody that's been down here has enjoyed it the time that they've been here.
And what do you do now for radio and television service?
Well, I don't work for them, but I work at an Air Force operated solar observatory.
Yeah, but are you receiving radio and television service down there at all now?
Not down here. We don't. They had it when I got here in November of '99, but when the base totally shut down, about 6 months later, they lost it, and they weren't able to get the signal down here anymore.
Okay. Well, John, we appreciate you calling in and the comments. It was very kind of you to call in.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Arrivederci.
Okay, arrivederci. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
It's just amazing how many thousands of people have really enjoyed the services overseas through AFRTS, even though in the early days they had to endure 2 or 3 week delays.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. But, the contact is the important thing. People were able to get some news from home, and on the radio they get it very timely. And down in Italy it was kind of unique because of lack of telephone service. Quite often we would get things like someone would say, tell my wife I'm going to be home late. I'd say, okay, Mary, John's going to be late tonight. And, this is the only way we had to communicate. And I'll tell you one funny story that happened, and this is true. A lady called us from the commissary on base and said, would you tell my husband he forgot me? And he had gone home, and he lived about 20 miles out. So we got on the air and said, John, you left Mary at the commissary, and he had to come all the way back in to get her.
Gee, I'd like to have heard the follow-up to that story.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what the divorce lawyer said. So we're talking about the advent of sketchy satellite service. What happened after that?
Well, initially it was for television. Satellite service was paid for by the local command. In our case, the United States Southern Command.
Uh-huh.
Eventually, DoD, of course, then cranked it into their budget, so Department of Defense started funding all of these events, and they had what they called occasional use satellite events that were sent throughout the year, usually football games, the Super Bowl, World Series, major sports events like that,
mm-hmm.
plus other timely things like inaugurations of the president, and eventually that migrated into what we called SatNet, satellite network,
mm-hmm.
which came out of Elmendorf, Alaska, Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, and fed Panama, Puerto Rico, and Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And that was while AFRTS here in Hollywood was setting up the facilities in that old building at 1016 McCadden Place, which
mm-hmm.
I remember so well.
Oh, yes, a rabbit's wren.
Right. Trying to find room to put in satellite equipment there, and eventually that got on the air in, I think, just before I arrived here in 1982. So then everything came out of here, and now everything is by satellite, radio and television, out of the broadcast center, which is now located at March Air Reserve Base near Riverside, California.
Uh-huh. Okay, we have another caller calling in, and I think this is an old friend of mine from years ago, Don Casey.
Good evening, Ken. How are you?
How are you, sir? I haven't talked to you in 30 years.
No, and I'm sorry for that. It's been a crazy 30 years. But I've been listening to the program, and you and Jerry, and enjoyed reminiscing about the old AFRS and AFRTS.
Yeah.
Because I served in Thailand, unbeknownst to both of us, a year after you did.
Oh, really?
At Udorn.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we joined up in 1971, and I served with you at San Vito until the end of 1973.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great time.
Oh, we had a great time down there.
We had we worked hard, but we really enjoyed serving the folks on the base and off the base.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember some of the programs that we did, like the Story Lady on Saturday mornings for the dependents?
Yeah, with Gail Longo.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we also did a morning news show.
Yeah.
We
morning line.
Like San Vito's Today Show.
It was morning line, and then we had evening line.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
And don't forget the 4th of July.
Oh, the 4th of July's were the greatest.
The remotes, Jerry, what we would do is we'd get a flatbed truck, and the guys would go over there, and they'd have the microphone and feed it back to the station and play the records from the station.
Wow.
And we just had a blast talking to the people, and we had a great time doing that.
Did you guys have one FM channel or two at that point?
We had one.
The one.
We just had one. It was a very low power. It only got out about 20 or 25 miles from the base, and it was kind of sketchy on the edges, but the people loved it, and we just had a blast with it.
Italy was always a problem with AFRTS because of the FM channels being pirated up in the Vicenza area particularly.
Mm-hmm.
There were commercial stations that eventually ended up coming in trying to to kick them off those frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very difficult to get signals up there, but I think, as I recall, San Vito didn't have that problem.
No, we didn't. But we had our frequency up at 107, so it was well over at the far end of the dial, and the Italian radios, so coincidentally at that time, only went up to 105.
Uh-huh.
And we covered most of the area fairly well, out to Stuni and, south and Lasagna, and all those, Specchiola and all those off-base areas where a lot of our guys lived and with their families.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Don, you're going to be interested in one of our guests at the last part of the program is Bill Kirkpatrick.
Oh, Uncle Heavy.
Uncle Heavy's going to be on. Yeah.
He was our rock and roll expert.
Yes, he was.
Really?
Oldies expert.
Yes, we had a great crew. We all enjoyed being there, and we had a lot of fun working for you, Ken, because you made it really enjoyable to be there.
Oh, thank you, Don.
I mean that sincerely. It was 2.5 of my most enjoyable years. And, I sometimes long for those days when I could work at a radio station where you didn't have to worry about ratings.
Yeah. When you're the only station in town, you're number one.
That's it. And I do enjoy your veterans program. I listen whenever I can.
Oh, good. Thank you, Don.
On the Internet. I'm a little far from Michigan to pick it up on the radio. I'm in Delaware.
Yeah.
But we do enjoy it on the Internet, Ken, and I just wanted to call in to say hello, and I'll be in touch with you personally, in the near future.
Well, I appreciate that, and if you'll stay on the line, I'll have our technical director get your phone number, and we'll talk to you later then.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Nice hearing from you, Terry.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you.
Oh, wow, a voice from the past. Wow, that's
terrific.
Yeah, a little shock. That's great. I'm so happy to hear those guys, and it I don't know, it just kind of makes you say, well, it was all worthwhile,
Yeah, and you do lose track of them so easily.
Oh, yeah.
That wonderful music you were talking about from all the vinyl libraries.
Oh, yeah.
That used to be at AFRTS have all been destroyed.
Oh.
Thing now is on CD.
Breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Oh, I remember the 16-inch platters that we used to have.
Yeah, the pizza platters.
Oh, yeah, the pizzas. Oh, gee. And they were so awkward to handle, but yet that's what they came out with initially. Jerry, who were some of the luminaries that worked for AFRTS before they reached stardom? We mentioned Pat Sajak.
There was Gary Collins out of AFN.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Sajak. Dale Dye. I just heard a spot on before we came on the air here about Captain Dale Dye. He was at AFRTS.
Mm-hmm.
We have a local weatherman here in town on the NBC channel, KNBC, Fritz Coleman.
Well, what they might tell him, Dale Dye is now a military advisor to the Stars. He's been on the show before.
Is he really?
Yeah. And so he's a big supporter of the military, and
he is. Yeah.
But I mean, he had a long military history.
I knew him when he was an Air Force, a Marine. I think he was a gunnery sergeant.
Yeah.
Before he became a captain.
Yeah.
And let's see, who else? Robert Loggia, the actor. Was,
oh, yeah.
That's the gun in Panama. George Kennedy, it was AFN.
Mm-hmm.
Casey Kasem, Bob Kingsley from American Country Countdown. Casey,
right.
From American Top 40.
Right.
All had AFRTS backgrounds. But a lot of guys got their start on Armed Forces Radio.
Right.
Never had done a thing before they touched that, and I guess that's the way with you, too.
Yep, that's right. I was in medical administration, and I came home with a base paper one day, and my wife said, "Hey, did you see this? They're looking for disc jockeys." And I said, "Oh, okay." 60 days later, I was in school. 60 days later, I was in Thailand.
Oh, boy. Wow.
I mean, it just didn't take any time at all. Bam, 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 and I was gone. But, yeah.
You went to the Defense Information School where, at Fort Slocum? Or
no, at Indianapolis.
Fort Ben.
Yeah, Fort Ben Harrison.
Right.
It was great experience. The whole time I was in AFRTS was a great experience.
That's now at Fort Meade. They put it
right.
Fort Meade, and everything's going to be consolidated at Fort Meade with the exception of the broadcast center.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of changes since you and I were in the service.
Oh, yes. And
incidentally, it is now, again, I think it's been there 3 or 4 times, American Forces Radio and Television Service.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Armed like it used to be.
Oh, it's back again. Okay.
They'll probably change that in a couple of years.
Okay. Jerry, we got to go. I appreciate your coming on the line with us and talking. It's been great. A lot of wonderful history there. And we wish you the best, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much, Ken. Good talking with you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hi.
And there you go. Hey, that's some of the history of AFRTS, some of the big names that were on there and have made it. Hey, I noticed he didn't mention my name. We'll be right back after this message. The Medal of Honor is the highest award for valor in combat given a member of the Armed Forces of the United States. There have been over 3,400 recipients of the nation's highest award. This is one of them. Army Sergeant John Latham, along with 2 comrades, rescued 3 soldiers under heavy German machine gun fire. Details after this. Becoming separated from their platoon by a smoke barrage, Sergeant Latham, Sergeant Alan Eggers, and Corporal Thomas O'Shea took cover in a shell hole well within the enemy's lines. Upon hearing a call for help from an American tank that had become disabled 30 yards from them, the 3 soldiers left their shelter and started toward the tank under heavy fire from German machine guns and trench mortars. In crossing the fire-swept area, O'Shea was mortally wounded, but Latham and Eggers proceeded to the tank, rescued a wounded officer, and assisted 2 wounded soldiers to cover in a nearby trench. Latham and Eggers then returned to the tank in the face of violent fire, dismounted a Hotchkiss gun, and took it back to where the wounded men were, keeping off the enemy all day by effective use of the gun, and later bringing it with the wounded men back to our lines under cover of darkness. Sergeant Alan Eggers was also awarded the Medal of Honor.
The Medal of Honor series is a production of Veterans Radio.
And we're back on Veterans Radio and getting ready to go into our next guest, who is also an old military friend of mine, an old buddy of mine, Jerry Reed. Hello,
yeah,
Jerry.
Old is right.
Yeah, well, we get older every day, don't we?
Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm just great. Just great. Jerry and I met in 1970 at Takli, Thailand, and I think our friendship was instantaneous.
Yeah, it's been that way. Also, we've had some, we've lost touch from time to time, but that you always regain those connections and always reconnect. As a matter of fact, we got to get together with a bunch of with our old compadres down in New Orleans a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It was good to get back at everybody, and what really surprised me, and the audience doesn't know this, of course, but I grew a beard and I was wearing glasses, and last time you saw me, I had neither one.
Yeah, that's right.
And I walked down the hall behind you into the reception area at the reunion.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hi, Jerry," and you turned around and looked at me and said, "Hi, Ken." And I was stunned because even some of my close friends would never recognize me that way. And what did you tell me?
What did I tell you?
Yeah, well, you said it was the eyes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Jerry, how did you get into AFRTS?
Oh, gosh, this is it's one of those, I'll try to tell it in a short story, but I was working in a little radio station, Daytimer, up in Watertown, New York, going to college at the same time and playing DJ, and every week I got the duty of running the control board for the local Air Force recruiter who came in and do a little half-hour show every week. And of course, it was getting to the point where I wasn't doing too good in college, and it was facing the draft and all that stuff, and this guy's name was Sergeant Ken Bowers, and Ken says to me, he says, "Tell you what, you sign up for the Air Force with me, and I'll do what I can to get you into Armed Forces Radio." And I said, "Well, what's Armed Forces Radio?" and he said, "Well, this is what you're doing right here, and you'll be doing it in various places around the world, and you'll have some good duty." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll think about that." And I ended up taking him up on the offer and got to basic training, and came time for that opportunity to select your career field, and there were 2 choices on the chalkboard that day. One was weatherman and one was cook. and I said, well, I'll just pick one of those. And then that evening on my free phone call of the day, I made a call to Sergeant Bowers, and I said, "Okay, how do we work this out? How do I get in Armed Forces Radio?" And he says, "Don't worry about it. I'll just sit back and things will work out." I said, "Okay, fine." So out of formation one day. I was called, and of course, when you're called out of formation in basic, you're kind of afraid about what's going to happen. What did I do wrong?
Doom.
And I was told to report to the base information office. I said, okay, I'll go over there. So I reported over there, and they said, well, your recruiter back home is requested that you do a report on life and basic training and how you like it for his radio show back home. Little did I know that was my audition.
Uh-huh.
And when we all got out of basic training, I didn't have orders, and I sat around for a couple of weeks trying to figure out, well, what's wrong? What did I do? And the orders came through. I was assigned to the television operations in Denver, Colorado at Lowry Air Force Base, and was there for about 18 months, and then got assigned to my overseas duty, which was in Tak Lee, Thailand, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So, what did you think about being in AFRTS? How did you feel about it?
Well, I didn't even know what I was getting into when I first got there. You say, okay, you're going to Thailand. Well, what are you going to do? And I wasn't sure what we did in Armed Forces Radio. I didn't know anything about it. Got over there and found out that they were operating a real live radio station and doing things very professionally. And then I realized that what the real reason was is primarily for morale, to bring that little piece of home back to the guys who are far away from home, and gals.
Right.
You do what you can, and we had all. Of course, everybody has all sorts of interests, and so I think one of the things that I was most impressed with Armed Forces Radio is if you liked opera, you got opera. If you liked drama, you got drama. If you liked comedy, you got comedy. And we mixed it all up, and it was very much like a lot of the public radio stations that we listen to today operate, with a block programming format. So a little bit of everything for a little bit of everybody. Everybody got a taste of what they liked, that little piece of home, And I thought that was great. I did a rock and roll show at one point, and then did an overnight show, and probably the most important part of all of what we did was the requests that we played, because that was what they wanted to hear, and that was that song that reminded them of something specific, or struck a bell, or it just struck a nerve that they wanted, just to help them, and that I thought was probably one of the most important things we could have done.
Yeah, well, I felt the same way. I thought it was real rewarding when people would stop you on the street and say thanks.
Oh yeah. Interesting. There were other ways that they would say thanks too. I remember one time I would quite often when I was doing the overnight shift, the guys in the bakery at the base commissary, was they were working all night shift, making the stuff for the breakfast the next morning, and we would play requests for them all the time. And then this one morning there was a knock on the door, and I went out to the door, and there's nobody there. The door was locked; they couldn't get in, so we locked the door and looked outside, and there was this freshly made, still hot from the oven, tray of cinnamon rolls.
Oh, wow.
It was just kind of a nice thank you for, hey, you guys did nice for us. Here's something we did for you.
Yeah.
It was those little things that were the thank yous that made you feel like, hey, I did something good today.
Right, exactly. And the phone calls that you would get sometimes were good, too.
Oh, yeah. People, they just like to talk, and it was a connection. It was a very rewarding duty.
What was your most memorable experience at Tak Lee, other than meeting me?
Well, obviously that was the forerunner for a long-term relationship, long-term friendship. I tried to think about all memorable experiences. there were so many that just kind of happened that the things that we did, the programs that we aired. I think one of the memorable ones was I was assigned to go do an interview. They wanted an interview with one of the guests that was coming on to the base that day, and I was told to go over to the Officers Club with a little Sony tape recorder we had and to do an interview with this guy. And they said this guy's name is Ely, Ron Ely.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go over and to interview him. He's the guy that played Tarzan on the TV show.
Right.
TV series was running, and so I went over there, and he didn't come, and he didn't come, and he didn't come, and then all of a sudden this guy comes waltzing in, and he's surrounded with his entourage of people, and he is soaking wet from head to feet, just soaking wet. And they're saying, what in God's name happened to Tarzan? Well, it seemed that about 6 or 7 of the officers decided that the pool outside was a good place to throw Tarzan in. It took 6 of them to do it, but it was a fun interview, and that was a memorable occasion.
One of my highlights of my tour at Tonk Lee was during the summer is the first Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force came through. Now, for the uneducated listeners, that's the top dog for the enlisted force in Washington, who speaks to the Chief of Staff about the enlisted force. And I had an interview with him.
Oh, wow.
And you talk about somebody being nervous. All the way over there, I kept thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? He turned out to be such a personable individual. It was easy to interview him.
Yeah. I think one of the other memorable occasions for me was, and it took us about 4 months to put it all together, and all the negotiations that had to take place with the Thai officials and with the Thai television network, and we were able to, through a special arrangement with the Thai television network, to bring a satellite feed of the astronauts walking on the moon to the troops in Thailand on something that had not been done before over there. It was a matter of relay to here, to this base, to here, to there, but we managed to get it, and we managed to get live coverage, live now,
right,
to the troops in Thailand, when all we had prior to that was 16-millimeter film.
Right, right.
And we did local newscasts, and we played reruns of Twilight Zone and reruns of The Tonight Show and stuff like that. I remember our television came about halfway through my tour there. I think it was my June or July, and we were on the air for about 6 or 7 hours a day, I think it was.
Went on at 4 and went off at midnight.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Jerry, we got to go. I want to thank you for taking time out to talk with us. And,
I appreciate you having me on.
And we'll be talking to you again in the near future.
I'll be happy to do it.
We'll be back after these messages. And we're back on Veterans Radio, and our next guest is another old Air Force buddy of mine who was in AFRTS, Bill Kirkpatrick. Hello, Bill.
How you doing, Ken?
Good. Hey, listen, we only got about 30 seconds, so give me your life history.
Well, that's about all I could put it in a thumbnail, I guess.
Just joking, just joking. How did you get into AFRTS?
You know what? It's funny, Ken, but my story was somewhat similar to your last caller. I was in college in '68 at San Jose State here in California, and Vietnam was going on, of course. I knew I was going to have to go in, so at least I wanted to do something that I liked. Well, I was doing a college radio show at the time, enjoyed doing the disc jockey stuff. Went to all the recruiters. The only ones that could offer me anything that was of interest was the Air Force recruiter, who said, "We'll make you a DJ." I said, "That's exactly what I'd like to do." Long story short, got my orders. It was deferred enlistment. They made me an inventory management specialist. After all these promises, I was infuriated. Like your other caller, I wound up going to Lowry Air Force Base to study inventory management, wound up at Kingsley Field, Oregon.
Oh, we were at Kingsley Field.
Were you?
Yeah.
And, well, it's closed, too, now. Lowry closed, Ben Harrison's closed, which I wound up at, and Lowry. And so, long story short, got to Kingsley Field, went into the information office there and complained about this. Well, I wanted to mention to Jerry Fry, I wish he was still on the air, if he knew a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Reiser at the time.
Colonel Buzz Reiser.
Yes. Well,
yes.
Let me tell you, I went to this information office at Kingsley Field. I told the guy my story, the captain. He said, just a minute. He got on the phone to the Pentagon with Lieutenant Reiser and told him my story. He said, how come this guy's not a DJ? Why is he ordering aircraft parts here at Kingsley Field? Long story short, Lieutenant Colonel Reiser got me in. I've always wanted to thank that man. I guess he's probably not around anymore. But in any event, that's how I got into it. Went to Fort Ben Harrison that winter of 69-70. Wound up at San Vito, Italy, where I got to meet you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny that you were at Kingsley Field because when I left San Vito in 1975, they sent me to Johnston Island. And you remember I stopped and saw you on the way to Johnston Island.
Yep.
But my family moved to Kingsley Field in Oregon.
Klamath Falls.
Yeah, because they had housing available there for the families.
I did not know that
service
till
members.
now.
I didn't know you were there either. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Well, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Every base I've been to is closed now except San Antonio, Lackland, which will never be closed.
You didn't hear about that? Well, you know, somebody said something when you got to San Vito. They said something about San Vito closing. And I said, no, it's not. Well, yeah, they did. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, because of you.
There's a San Vito website now, Ken. I think you're aware of it, called myfamily.com, and they have a special section for AFRS information on that site. It's wonderful. Our webmaster, Harry Meekins, does a great job.
Yeah, his birthday's coming up.
Yeah, and I know Tommy T.J. James is part of the, he logs on all the time, and Don Ross and Mike Fitchner used to, I believe, but I haven't heard from them recently on the site.
Well, you missed our during the first call with Jerry Fry. I don't know whether you heard it. Don Casey was on.
I did hear that, and shout out to you, Don. I'm sure you're still listening.
Yeah, yeah.
I get to talk to Don on the phone every once in a while. And my buddies from San Vito, Jim Johnson and Smiley Welke, should be listening in too. They knew you, and we all had a great time at San Vito.
Bill, how did you feel about being in AFRTS?
I just loved every minute of it, Ken. I was so depressed. Was sitting there ordering aircraft parts at Kingsley Field wondering what happened. Why did that recruiter in San Jose tell me I was going to be a disc jockey? And boy, from the moment I got to San Vito, for the rest of my tour, I was just on cloud nine, especially working for great supervisors like you. I mean, you were fantastic.
Thank you.
And it just made the whole experience wonderful. I mean, what else? What other kind of military job can be better as far as I'm concerned? Spinning records and doing newscasts.
Yeah.
Every day, that's quite a job to have if you're going to be in the military. I loved all of it.
What are some of the good experiences you remember from San Vito?
You know, like one of the other callers, those 4th of July marathon remotes we did were the most fun there at San Vito in Italy. I just remember those remotes so much. I've even got some tape segments of those still.
Oh, wow.
One of them with Gene Pickett inhaling helium on the air.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Those and the fundraising marathons in the radio station. And I remember you were a big part of that, too.
Well, the Hope marathons.
Oh, those were fun.
Yeah.
People called in and pledged money for fundraisers to play your record and...
or to do some silly antic on the air.
Yeah, as much as we could get away with. We did some crazy stuff.
Yeah, do you remember one of the first ones, they challenged me to wear a wig... and I did, and I went over to the base theater, and I was waiting in line. My wife and kids walked by me 3 times. They didn't recognize me, but I had this big wig on.
I've got slides of that. I do.
Sounds like blackmail.
I think I'm going to have to post them on some kind of website.
Oh no! I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yes, that seems like yesterday. It really does.
It does. It
really does.
And you know, we had a motto when we were down there called San Vito's a fun tour, and it truly was.
At least
it truly was. We had more fun.
Everybody loved it. I don't remember a discouraging word from anybody of my friends that were there.
What was your perception of the audience reaction to being there serving for them?
Well, we were the only game in town.
Uh-huh.
We didn't even have TV then when I was there.
Right.
You know, that came shortly thereafter, after I left in '73, and I think you were still there, weren't you, when TV was coming in?
I was laying the groundwork for it. I walked the base with the cable installers, and then I had to leave. I never saw it.
Yeah, I knew you caught a piece of it, and but no, when I left in April of '73, there was nothing going on at all regarding television. But everybody that I think loved AFRTS because you had up to the minute news, and you know, we had the teletypes, and we got the news at the same time with the Associated Press as any other station in America. You know, we were right up to the minute. We had all the great music people loved. If you liked oldies classics, if you liked opera, for gosh sakes, we had that, and everything in between, country music. It was something for everybody.
Yeah. And how did you feel about being, how do I say it, a morale booster?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. For that same reason, you know, you had all the latest news from home was right there on every hour on the hour. So sure, it kept you in touch with what was going on in the States. It had to be a great morale booster. It certainly was for me, and I was right in the midst of it.
Yeah. And I just remember some of the fondest stories of things that happened down there.
What was that?
Oh, it's just all kinds of stories of things that happened, the marathons, and
sure,
you know, challenging the chief of security police to greet people at the gate, and
absolutely.
And, you know, we had Dick Chase, and we had him shave off half of his mustache.
Yep, I remember it well.
And there was somebody else in the station that we had him shave off the other half. So they were.
Was it Fitchner? Mike Fitchner?
I don't know who it was. I can't remember who it was now, but we put them together. So one guy had the right side shaved off, and the other one had the left, and we put them together, the bare ones together.
Absolutely, I remember that.
Yeah.
I think it was Mike Fitchner, I'm pretty sure.
It could very well have been.
Yeah.
It could very well have been. Did you? What happened after San Vito? Did you stay in AFRTS or?
No. I just did my 4 years, and I got out, and I wanted to be a disc jockey still. But I soon found out that if you didn't have connections or live in a big city, there was no money in it.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I wound up, I'd already had my college degree, I had a teaching credential, but no teaching jobs available at that time. There was a teacher glut in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get work anywhere related to my degree, so I finally got into a sociological type field and became a probation officer.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 4 years of that career, I retired 4 years ago, was as a juvenile court hearing officer, hearing mostly traffic court cases, so that was fun, too.
Juvenile hearing court, that goes right along with AFRTS.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little aside. For 21 years, however, every weekend, I had a small business operation. I was a mobile disc jockey for wedding receptions.
Mm-hmm.
So I did keep a finger in it. On weekends, I was a disc jockey.
Yeah.
21 years.
What are some of your most memorable experiences down there?
In San Vito?
Yeah. Is anything that really stand out? Or were there just so many like I have?
You know, like I say, those 4th of July, I did 3 of them, and they were always fun. And as far as a unique experience, just what we've already talked about, those marathons where the crazy stuff happening in the station, you with the wig and all that. I mean, no, I can't remember one specific one. They were just all so much fun.
Yeah.
And you?
Oh, gee, I'm the same way. There were just so many things. Of course, I was there for 5 years, and there were so many things that happened in the station that it was so great of fun. Bill,
I really can't. They were all good.
We have to go. I want to thank you for participating tonight and talking about AFRTS.
Great talking to you again, Ken.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Since 1989, when you and Geisler, the wife, you were in Germany, and I was backpacking, and you gave me a great dinner. I'll never forget it.
Okay, we got to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And that's our show for tonight. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Gary Lilly and Associates, Schrader Yacht Sales, Legal Aid for Veterans, Sidetrack Bar and Grill, Quantum Physical Therapy, and Pat the Handyman. Stay tuned to Theron. And until next week, you are dismissed.